I think that a proper human diet is ancestrally appropriate. And let me be very specific about the time period I'm talking about, because vegans and plant-based people, they love to talk about something that happened in the late Mesolithic or something. And what they're wind up talking about is 2,000 years ago. And it's like you're using a big paleoanthropological term to mean a couple of hundred years ago, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm talking specifically about a diet that human beings ate more than 15,000 years ago. Because there was some catastrophic event that happened on planet Earth about 13,000 years ago that, along with our hunting pressure, pretty much decimated the megafauna all around the world, multiple different locations. Paleoanthropological research has made that very clear. And so the modern fauna that we have now to hunt is much leaner, much less humongous than the stuff that we had to hunt before. And so we basically were forced to begin farming. And so you can't come at me and say, well, that frozen Iceman guy in Italy, they found some grains in his stomach. That was 5,000 years ago. Yes, they did. That's right. That was after the catastrophe. We were basically moments from starving to death on any given day, because all the huge school bus size megafauna that we used to hunt at our pleasure, it was no longer in existence. And so it must be nutrient dense. It must be ancestrally appropriate. It must be low carbohydrate by design. It must be uninflammatory by definition, right? If you're eating a diet that causes inflammation in your gut, in your joints, in your skin, in your mental health, that can't be a proper human diet for you. It may be for someone else. Maybe they can eat all of those plants. Maybe they can eat the phytates and the oxalates and the lectins, and that doesn't bother them. And that's fine. That can be part of their carbohydrate intake each day on their proper human diet. But for some of us, and you probably have talked to a few people, if it's anything outside of ruminant animal flesh and salt and water, they're going to have some degree of inflammation, even if they're eating other animals. And so I think a proper human diet, by definition, is uninflammatory. It does not introduce or cause chronic inappropriate inflammation in the human body. And that's just some of the kind of foundational principles that I've built this concept of a proper human diet on.
Yeah. And to your point, I've spoken to a lot of people with autoimmune issues, and they even have problems even with actual meat. So even like, pork and chicken might set them off. I think it's probably more to do with what the pig and the chicken are eating. And that might be, then pass on. And then, but also like egg whites as well. And dairy will certainly cause problems, especially early on. But I think that quite a lot of people seem to heal and recover, and after a certain period of time they can seem to tolerate these things a bit more. But in sort of the acute phase, when they're healing, from like a Crohn's or ulcerative colitis, they seem to be a bit more sensitive to that. Have you noticed something like that as well?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And it varies. There's a spectrum of a proper human diet. There's not just one answer for every human on the planet. And so the question becomes, is pork and chicken, is it inherently inflammatory to some people? Or is it the current diet of the pig and the chicken that leads to, since they're monogastric, right? They only have one stomach they don't have the fermentation ability of ruminants. Maybe that makes their meat more inflammatory if they're eating a species inappropriate diet. Then another question becomes, if someone with an autoimmune condition who reacts to pork and chicken, is that for life? Or after a few months or a few years of letting their metabolism heal and letting their immune system basically calm down and stop freaking out over stuff it shouldn't be freaking out over, will it stop attacking its own self? And then they can eat pork and chicken again. So that's why I encourage everyone to have some degree of self-experimentation with food. Now, I don't want you to be experimenting with illicit drugs, right? I don't want you to be experimenting with extreme rock climbing or skydiving. I want you to experiment with food. I don't think that's too much to ask of the average person, right? Although a lot of the experts on Twitter say you can't have these people doing all these experiments. It's like, well, they're literally, it's chicken and pork and beef.
Yeah.
I don't think anything's going to blow up.
Yeah.
Do an experiment like that in 30 or 90 days. But yeah, the autoimmune community, they benefit better from a proper human diet, very often towards the carnivore spectrum. Just, it's amazing. It's virtually miraculous.
Yeah.
The improvement that they get, not only in mental health, but in skin, gut, joints, in other ways. And to them, it feels miraculous, but I always have to remind them, no, it's just physiology. When you honor your human physiology, your body starts to heal, because the baseline setting for human health is good, vibrant health. You only muck that up if you're putting things in the system that shouldn't be.